Good morning and welcome to another edition of Guide Day here on BTL. This is actually the third Guide Day of the 2024 season, a new addition to the BTL family running. We're starting every Friday. Eventually it's going to peel off to be probably every other Friday, but I wanted to kind of get in the swing of things, talk to a bunch of different guides from across the country, kind of give people an idea of what they can expect if they're traveling for business, if they're looking to take a destination trip. We kicked off with some exotics and the Florida fishing with Captain Justin Jones down in Florida with the clown knifefish and the peacocks and the Okeechobee bass, both on artificial and the golden shiners. And then we transitioned to Big JP, who is up in New York, who kind of does the destination trip for the giant smallmouth. And now we're going to get right into the guts of it, right into the middle of the country, what I would consider, just based on my knowledge and the people that I know in that part, probably one of the toughest, but also most rewarding places to guide. And that is on the TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, the river systems. There's a bunch of lakes down there, and a guy who's been doing it for a long time, both in the tournament scene and the guiding scene, is Jimmy Mason, who we have joining us. Jimmy, thank you. We're taking advantage of this weather. You got some time off the water. Thanks for jumping on Guide Day.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me on.
Is that a fair assessment? One of the toughest. Now, I know you're probably going to be a little bit biased, but you guide on Wheeler, Wilson, Pickwick, Guntersville. To me, there are tons of guides. There are tons of guys who fish that, who think that they could be guides. And there's just a lot of competition and a lot of different fisheries.
Yeah, it is. And every year you'll have a few new ones come along, and you'll have some guys that drop off. So it can be, there's a number of us that work together that are all long term, and I think that helps is when you've got that established network that helps each other. But yeah, it can be.
Just a little bit of background. I mentioned the fisheries you guide on, but you're a lifelong tournament angler. Now, you fished the Elite Series, I believe, in 07, the FLW Tour in 06. You fished like 80 opens and a billion BFLs. Like you're addicted to tournament fishing and always have been. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I like it. And that's kind of the kind of what led me into guiding is I've got an engineering degree and work full time in Huntsville. Huntsville's a big tech center, and when I won the ABA National Championship back in 03, it kind of, I got a slot in the following year's opens, and the company, I had taken a bunch of time off above my vacation. And so the fished the opens, made the top 150s of my first year fishing them, and it came down to my company said either they were going through downsizing, so I took a severance, and I had guided in college a lot, so I went back to guiding and fishing tournaments.
What got you into guiding in college? Family thing, or just spent a lot of time on the water, or what was it like back in the early 2000s?
Just a lot of time
90s?
on the water.
Really?
Just a lot of time on the water. Back then, I only guided on Wheeler, and I didn't do it a lot, maybe 25 days a year, but just help pay the way through college.
Yeah. That had to be like put your business card in tackle shops and word of mouth back then. I'm not trying to date you, Jimmy, but I mean, now it's totally different.
It was way different than now.
And how would you just word of mouth and hang out at tackle shops and get guide trips that way? Because I would imagine if you're college and you're young, still the TVA still had to be a lot of guiding competition back then.
Really, it wasn't, man. And maybe one other one on Wheeler. And I live, at the time I grew up just, 2 or 3 miles from one of the Alabama's big state parks. So a lot of my business then came through the people that were staying at the state park. And so that really is what did it.
So when you started, there was one other guide on Wheeler. Like, how many guides would you say there were totally on the whole TVA system? Like less than 50? Because now there's like 50 on each one, right?
No, not that many. Like Wheeler, there's maybe 10 of us that guide any at all on Wheeler. And it's kind of funny. I live on Wheeler. My son's name Wheeler, and it's the lake.
Wow. We lost Jimmy. Jimmy's back.
Got you?
Yep, I got you again now.
Wheeler, there might be 10. Wilson, there's maybe 10. But Pickwick, there's more. There's probably 20. And then on Guntersville, it's probably closer to 40.
Okay, so there's roughly on that stretch, there's 60, 70 guides. Are there a bunch of guys that guide on all four like you do, or is it mainly specific bodies of water, and just because of your familiarity with it, you kind of mix and match based on what's going on?
It's mainly guys that'll do specific,
All right. Talk a little bit about the tournament dynamic. I mentioned your tournament scene. What percentage of your clients are new to bass fishing? What percentage are fun fishermen? And what percentage are guys that tournament fish that you take out, I guess prior to their tournaments, or that want to become better tournament fishermen? Because like I said, you also tournament fish. And I know that in circles that gets talked about a lot. Some guides are 100% cool with guys being like, hey, I want to learn this body of water better. And they're open about tournament fishermen. Some guys, like you do like a Josh Douglas up in Minnesota. He's like, no tournament fishermen have to be from out of state and book multiple days in advance. Kind of where do you stand on that? And what's your distribution of clients?
Man, it's probably like that. The tournament guys is probably my least percentage that I do. Okay. I might be 10% on that. Mm-hmm. Maybe 15 some years, but overall that's the lowest percentage. I do a lot of corporate guiding. That's probably I'm about 70-75% repeat. So the majority of my clients are guys that I fished with a lot in the past, and mm-hmm. and a good percentage of them, probably at least 50% of mine is corporate, where guys are bringing clients in to entertain. They're bringing, they use it for rewards for their employees, and so it's a lot of that. But the tournaments is probably the least, but I've had guys win boats, the guys that I've taken win boats before, and guys make their major championships that they were coming here competing for, and guys making their national championships that they were fishing for, and those, I actually had one client made the Bassmaster Classic fishing with me before one of the Federation Nationals here, and that was really special right there.
That's neat. It's a really diverse kind of section of the country. For those who aren't familiar with the TVA, just kind of, and I'm going to pull it up here on the map, but just kind of explain the section of the country that you guide in and what makes the TVA fisheries so unique compared to any other kind of, would you call it a system?
It is. It is a system. And the neat thing about it is, of the 4 lakes that you mentioned that I guide on, every one of them is different, and they fish so differently. And it's a very cool deal. Guntersville is different than Wheeler, and Guntersville and Wheeler are kind of similar in a way, but Guntersville doesn't have the drawdown like Wheeler. So with Wheeler, you deal with a 6-foot drawdown, where Guntersville you deal with 18-inch drawdown, and you've got the lower end of Wheelers kind of like a bowl. Same way with Wilson, it's like a big bowl where there's very little offshore structure away from the bank, and then you've got Pickwick, which is probably more like a combination of Guntersville and Guntersville and Wheeler, because it sets up like Guntersville, but it has the 6-foot drawdown. So it's a very diverse fishery, and one of the things that's so important is the current, and it is one of those deals where, like I always say, the current's the dinner bell, and you can be having some stellar days with clients, and then they cut the water off, and it's one of those things that every day is different, and that's one of the things that we say a lot, and it's true here, because it's so much current dependent, and it's a neat fishery.
So will those fisheries all have different current at the same time? Like, could it be popping off on Wheeler but not moving on Pickwick, or is it kind of all move through that system? Like, do you have guys who call and say, hey, I want to guide with you, and you go, all right, you look at the generation schedule and say, we need to be on Wilson today, we need to be on Pickwick tomorrow, that type of thing? Yeah. Or okay.
Yeah, and a lot of time too that it's relating to water level, because like I said, Pickwick, they'll have a 6-foot fluctuation, where Wilson is more like about 18. So there are times you pick one over the other based upon the water level.
Okay. And then is it majority bass that you do? I know I was doing a little research before. You do like white bass trips and stuff too, but are the majority, I mean, you guys slinging artificials for bass on most of these trips?
Most of them, in the summertime, I do a ton of white bass trips, and that is turned into one of my favorite deals. And I think part of that's because like our kids are 10 and 11 now, and um, my son is eat up with fishing, and I take him and his buddies white bass fishing a lot, and I've got to where I've been offering that a lot the last 3 or 4 years. And 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours evening, you'll catch anywhere from 100 to 200 in 3 hours. And a lot of them are on top water, so it's just so much fun, and kids love it. I do a lot of trips with kids. And funny story, this summer I took a corporate client of mine. He's got a 9-year-old daughter, and we got started a little earlier than the usual. And I told him it'd be slow for the first hour. Well, the first hour she had caught 75, and I mean, it was just unbelievable every cast. And then this storm popped up, and it's just like pouring buckets. And she's 9, and she refuses to go in. And like, it wasn't supposed to rain. I had taken the rain suits out of the boat, and like, we're all soaked, and she won't quit. And she did like 6 or 7 more trips this fall. I mean, this summer after that. But it was, that was her very first fishing trip, and now she's hooked, and that was a really, really cool deal.
And those are all. Do you guys have hybrids and stripers in some of those lakes, don't you?
We do. The biggest striper that I had, saltwater, that I had a client catch this year was 27, and that was actually on like a shad spawn largemouth trip. And man, it was, when it hit that spook, it was like you hear those bowling ball out of the sky bites, and that was definitely one of them.
Okay, here's what I'm really interested in talking with you about. So the smallmouth fishing, it has been good there, but to me, just from the outside, and I've fished opens over the past couple years on Pickwick and Wheeler, it seems like there is a booming smallmouth population on some of these fisheries that is very targetable and looks ridiculously fun, whether it's tail race fishing, whether it's offshore bar fishing. Like, it seems like the smallmouth have really exploded over the last couple of years. Have you noticed that? And is that something that you target a lot?
It's really good, and that's kind of one of the things that myself, I got one of the buddies I got with, Brent Crow. Myself and Brent kind of have the reputation of the two most noted smallmouth guides, and it is, yes, it is good. It's down just a little bit from a few years ago, but it's kind of, I think it's coming back. We've had several good spawns in a row, caught a lot of small ones the last couple of years, so I think you're going to see it come back as good as it was. Now, like 10, 11, and 12 were phenomenal years. I mean, this year was good. I think I had 39 clients this year catch 1 over 6.
A smallmouth over. Wait a second. Say that again. So 39 of your clients this past year caught a smallmouth over 6 pounds.
Yeah,
that's like northern numbers, dude.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's, like this fall in November, in one stretch, I had 11 6-pound smallmouth caught in a week, and I actually had 2 different clients catch 2 over 6 in that stretch.
So what's don't give away trade secrets, but what kind of fishing are we talking about? Is it finesse smallmouth fishing, or are you power fishing these things with swim baits and moving baits and swift current?
In the spring, it's, in the spring and from February through, we do live bait fish here.
Okay. That's
in the fall.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, just in the fall. I mean, it's kind of one of those. I always say it's kind of a Tennessee River tradition. But like late September, October, November, probably about half of my trips are live bait with yellowtail shad. That's the only time of the year I do it. But it's so much fun, especially because you fished all year with artificials and having to do so much different, and be prepared in so many different, rods and reels and baits in the boat. Then come September, through late September through November, I mean, basically you got 4 spinning rods. If you got 2 clients in the boat, you'll have 2 spinning rods each with 8-pound test, and live bait, and it's addictive.
Is that more consistent bite then? Like, let's say you're out with
Yeah, it's
your
extreme.
wife,
I mean,
your
like,
kid, your girlfriend,
you'll
whatever.
catch, honestly, that time of year, the artificial bait fishing can be a lot tougher.
Yeah.
And you'll catch twice what you catch, minimum of twice, probably closer to 3 times what you will on artificial.
I never even.
But
And you'll do that.
it's really there's a lot of art to the live bait fishing. At times you can set the boat up where, like, a person on in the front of the boat doesn't get a bite, and the guy in the back of the boat gets all the bites, or vice versa. So it's more precise than a lot of people hear the term live bait fishing, and man, and honestly, now with the forward facing sonar and electronics, I mean, that's adds to it even more. And you learn, just like everybody talks with forward facing. I mean, you learn so much about the fish with it.
Is that mainly smallmouth though, or is that like anything that swims in there? Because I would imagine
anything that swims. I mean, a lot of days you'll catch 7 to 8 species, and just you get a lot of bites. And just like in the Great Lakes, I mean, you catch so many sheep's head, drum, sheep's head, whatever they call them up there, and you same way here. But like I tell a lot of clients, and you catch a number of 8 or 10 pounds of those in a day. Those get you ready for when that 6-pound smallmouth bites. And a lot of times I think guys are much better at fighting fish and landing fish after they've live bait fished and caught and got a bunch of bites.
All right, that kind of got me off track with the live bait, but you're kind of describing the seasons specifically with the smallmouth. I'm interested in kind of going back on what you do kind of winter and spring wise. Like, when's the best time to go? Like, if I have never tangled, like I fished all these, and I think the biggest smallmouth I've ever caught's like 3 pounds, Jimmy. It's really bad. I always go after spotted bass and easy largemouth because I'm scared that it open. I'm trying to fish for points there. But when is kind of the best time if you wanted to jump in the boat with you and do like a smallmouth trip? When is the best time when you would like a guy with you?
Mid-February through the 1st of May is
so that's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Are you like booked out already for that, or?
I've got I have 2 days left open in April.
Okay. So you gotta get on that.
Yeah, and that's one of those funny things. Like, so often, the majority of my clients that I fish with that I have in March during that time period have fished with me, the last 4 to 7 years during that time period, and they just rebook the same dates. I'll always wait till the tournament schedules come out, because we have a lot of tournaments here in Alabama that you can win really good money and not have to travel as much, and that's one of the reasons I haven't fished as much, like the opens and all, because but I'll wait till the tournament schedule come out, and then I'll start sending out text in a certain order, guys that have fished with me the longest, then where they can solidify their dates first.
Yeah. You mentioned the tournaments. That's something that I know certain people are nervous about, is they want to go on a trip regardless of where it is, but they don't want to book on top of a major tournament. They don't want to be out there with 300 boats. Talk about how you deal with that, because at some point on any of those 4 lakes, there's a 150 to 300 boat tournament, high school, college, ABAs, MLFs, Bassmasters. Something's always going on these TVA fisheries. So how do you work around the pressure, especially in that pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn period when all these lakes are kind of at their prime?
Well, it's one of those things you try to. There's certain times that you'll avoid a certain lake one week. Okay. Like if I try not to fish during the opens, or in the lead or whatever. Like on Pickwick this year, you got the college national championship in May, so I'll do everything on Guntersville. That probably, I think I've booked majority of that week on Guntersville so far, and you try to avoid that, because you don't want your clients to have to deal with not being able to fish where you want, or just deal with that frustration as much as possible. Because some of these guys are coming from out of state, and so you want them to have the best possible trip possible.
You mentioned the return guide clients. What can a client do to develop a relationship with that guide, to have that guide for years to come? Talk about, in your mind, what makes a good client and what makes you want to get back in the boat with them, and what makes a good client guide relationship.
It's just like any other. I mean, it's just like any other relationship. It's a lot of conversation, and it's almost, you look at your clients as your friends, especially the one, because I've got a number that I fish with 10 times a year, that I've fished with for 15 years. I mean, they become like, almost like really close. I mean, they become really close friends. They become almost like family, and just, basically just cutting up and having a good time. It's like, you treat it like you're fishing with a friend. It's got a point. The point is for them to have a great time, and the point is for them to, one of the most important things on that first guide trip is finding out what their objective is. If it's to learn a specific thing, if it is trying to catch that fish of a lifetime, if it's to entertain a client, one of the things, I mean, I know Gleason, Daryl's a good friend of mine, and I was listening to the BTL he was on, and there was something mentioned about keeping a log of what different clients like, and he mentioned that sounds like something I would do. But honestly, the little things like that, like, I mean, I've got certain clients who, one of them, he loves oat and honey bars, and so whenever, and he's about a 15 trip a year guy, so
Those
I
are
will
a
make
nightmare
sure.
in the boat, Jimmy. You can't eat an oat and honey. You can't eat an oat and honey bar without getting it all over the boat. It's impossible to eat one of those without the back half crumbling.
Well, like I said, he's about a 15 trip a year guy, and great client, great friend. So I'll always have him in the boat.
Yep.
There's another client that's a frequent client. He likes Necot crackers, so I'll always have him with him. So remembering those little things. Another thing I like to do is when a client catches a 6-pound smallmouth or a real notable fish, I'll have an 8x10 made and send to them, and just as where they see that fish on the wall, they think about fishing with me.
That's the other thing. You mentioned all these big fish, but I remember the first time that I went to Guntersville, and I just expected it to just be, I expected it to be like the greatest thing I'd ever seen, because you watch the guys go down there and Ski Reese catching 100 pounds, and you see all the 8 and 10 pounders. Managing expectations on fisheries that are historic, where big fish live, has to be a big part of your job, because I've spent a lot of days out there with good guys where I'm like, dude, I caught like 11 pounds today and had 5 bites, and I'm on Guntersville. Like, you have to deal with those days too. Talk a little bit about the management of expectations on such historic fisheries like a Pickwick or a Guntersville, specifically those two.
Man, that's huge. That is huge. Especially the hardest part is when you've got lakes that when the lakes go into a down cycle a little bit, and every lake does. Fortunately here, with the 4 lakes, there's always one that's on an upswing when the other is on a downswing. And right now that's Guntersville. Guntersville's probably fishing as good as it has in 10 years. So, but sometimes some of the hardest trips are the trips when you've had guys that have had just stellar days in the past, 2 or 3 years ago, and they come back to the lake, and when it's on like a little downturn, and it's, not as good as it was. But a lot of my clients are really serious fishermen, and one of them in particular is probably one of the most well-traveled fishermen that I know anywhere. His theory is, to hit the epic days, you got to be willing to. It's a 50-50 chance you're going to hit a bad day. And so he always tries to book on the very front end of when he expects the fish movement to happen, knowing that he might be booking early. And to him, it's worth it to come and have 2 days when they hadn't made the move yet, but they're fixing to, because the days that you hit when they make that big, massive move up, it's the days you remember 20 years from now. In particular, like, probably the best smallmouth guide day I've ever had was with him. And this is he records all the fish we catch, weighs them, and I actually have a copy of the paper that he recorded that day. Like our best 20 smallmouth that day weighed 99. He had a 714, and I had a 71. And the person he had with him had 2 over 6, and we had 1 more over 6. So it was the
You
day
had
of a
a
lifetime.
38-pound bag of smallmouth.
Yeah, it was
For
pretty
your
incredible.
Best 5.
Best 5.
Okay, so here's a question also then. You hear people say, well, why don't guides win every single tournament that they enter? And like you fish a bunch of tournaments too, and you've had a lot of success, but talk about the difference between a guide day and then a tournament day in your mind.
You know, man, and that's one of those things you always see like in the rules at different tournaments, you know, with the no guide rule. Honestly, I always say that the person that's the most dangerous is the retired guy that moved to the lake, or the retired guy, because you know when you're guiding, you're not necessarily hunting tournament winning fish as much. It's for the most part it's about the guys getting bites.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people a lot, you know, like the more I've guided, the worse I've got at deep cranking, but the better I've got at the spinning rod fishing, because so often bites are the most important thing. And that's just like in the summertime, you know, the majority of your clients, when you're deep fishing, I mean, if you give a guy, all right, we're going to go throw a big fat free shad or a DD22 all day and catch 10 good ones, or we're going to go and drop shot and you're going to catch 50 or 60, they're going to pick that drop shot. And so a lot of times, I mean, you're guiding, you're not necessarily looking for that tournament grade of fish.
That was the other question. The midsummer can be stifling there, but you guide 12 months out of the year right through kind of those dog days of summer.
Yep.
Is that a deal where if you're, I'm just thinking, if you're, you know, going to watch a major event that's taking place on a Wheeler, a Guntersville, a Pickwick or something, you can call and jump on one of the different lakes with you for a couple days and then go watch the weigh-in, or, you know, fish on a different lake that day and then go watch the weigh-in for the Elite Series or the BPT
Absolutely.
on that afternoon. Like, that'd be a fun trip, especially with so many of those TVA fisheries within an hour drive of each other.
Yeah, for sure. You know, just like the Elite this year at Wheeler, the Elite this year at Smith. I mean,
yep.
You know, that Smith time period is one of those when the white bass bite's so good, and you can go and have just a killer 3 hours in the morning, and you know, then go, like you say, go clean up and go to weigh-in.
One of those deals where some guys bring their own stuff and you supply it if they don't have it, or if they're in for a corporate event, or how does that work?
Yeah, I have everything. You know, I tell guys if there's certain rods and reel you want to fish with, bring them. Otherwise, you know, I'll have everything rigged in the boat, you know, and mixture of whatever, you know, if I find out if they want left-hand bait casters or right-hand bait casters, and then of course the spinning. And even got some 33s rigged up.
Hey, don't knock 33. You've had some giants caught on the Go 33s where they just keep reeling and never stop, and all of a sudden they reeled a 6-pounder right up to the dang rod tip.
Yeah, especially, you know, in wacky rig season and that.
Do you do trips, like, say someone does call and say, hey, I don't care what we want to catch, but I do want to learn how to deep crank ledges, or I want to learn how to throw a football on shell, or I want to, you do those trips as well too, more educational?
Absolutely.
Where there's no focus on catching
Absolutely.
Numbers. Okay.
Absolutely. You know, and that goes back to what I said earlier about, you know, you want to find out what their expectations of the day are and what their goal for the day is.
Largemouth wise, like, which one of those would you say is popping off right now for largemouth?
Guntersville.
Is it Guntersville? 100%. And that's just a cycle of good spawns, and and Pickwick got hot and Wheeler got hot, so there's maybe a little bit less pressure. They had a couple of good spawns. The grass is back, and there's been a steady flow through that lake, and it just.
I think Guntersville's probably the best it's been in 10 years, and I keep a camper over there and on the lake, and have been, you know, had it there close to 20 years, and I think it's probably as good as it's been in 10 years. You know, the Toyota series that's next month, the weights will be just unbelievable in it.
how does that lake continue to produce and not succumb to so much pressure?
Man,
I mean, the boat ramps are packed every single time and every single day of the year, unless it's like an apocalypse and then there's only 100 guys out there going, look, I'm fishing in the snow.
it's unbelievable. I mean, it is unbelievable. And it's a lot. Every area of the country has got really good fishermen, but it seems like, we're one of those pockets where there's so many good fishermen. And that's one of those where you've got so many good fishermen fishing the lake. And that lake is just outstanding, man.
Is that amazing to you too? Do you sit around and go, how does this lake keep pumping out such
Yeah.
healthy, good looking fish?
A
with
lot
so
of
much
people
pressure?
cuss the eelgrass. The grass has changed over there. Of course, if I could go back and bring it back to the old days when it was hydrilla and milfoil, I would love to have that. I mean, because it was so much more fun to fish for me, especially like the frog bite. But the eelgrass came in 10 to 12, 15 years ago now, and it's become the dominant grass. And it's a pain. It can be more of a pain, especially fishing a bait with treble hooks through it. A lot of times you have to change to a frog instead of a topwater in the summer, and fishing just over not because it's mats, because it's mats of floating eelgrass, but um, it's doing a great job protecting the fry and getting a lot of fish up to protecting a lot of fish up to their adults.
Is that if you wanted to do the heavy punch and the frog trip? Is that where you go in the summer?
Yeah, and Pickwick. Honestly, Pickwick has got this past year on Pickwick. It was the grass was really good. We didn't have a lot of rain this past year and didn't have any floods last spring, so the hydrilla grew back on Pickwick better than it's been in a number of years. And I feel like we had a great spawn last year on Pickwick. I feel like you're going to see. I mean, the winter trail weights have been really good. I mean, Saturday was probably the lowest that I've seen. I was down there tagging fish for the Bass Cash Bash Saturday for it, and it was 23-1, and that was the lowest winning weight of the year so far of the winter trail. It'd been taking like the tournament before, 2 weeks before, there was 11 bags over 20. So the winter weights are really good. So I feel like with the grass coming back like it did at Pickwick, we're going to have a really great there this year.
I'm interested in Wilson. The only thing I know about Wilson is you can lock through and catch him below the dam. Is Wilson a good fishery as the whole thing, or is there literally just one spot on Wilson and it's just if they're biting down there? Because that out of those three, Guntersville and Pickwick, Wheeler seems to be in a really solid cycle right now too, as far as weights we saw with the Open this year here. But Wilson's to me is the one that kind of gets left out of that. Talk a little bit about Wilson and then when you like to be on Wilson.
I like Wilson a lot. I mean, it's a lake I fish a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Wilson is a neat lake. It doesn't fluctuate. It's very little offshore structure. It's a lot of deep bank grass. So you got, like the water willow grass in it, you'll have it out into 5 to 6 foot. And it's just it's a fun, and it's full of fish. I mean, you don't have to fish the tail race. I mean, this time of year, a lot of the bigger bags aren't coming in the tail race. So, I mean, they get on the bluffs really good. They get on the docks really good. It's just a fun lake to fish. You catch it, man. You can go, you can take a shaky head down the bluffs. You can take a moving bait down the bluffs. You can fish docks. I mean, it's a lot of different ways to catch them.
Do you enjoy doing the tail race thing, or is that a little stressful?
I do. No, I like it. You get aggravated sometimes with, I say aggravated, it's just like any other area sometimes that they can be crowded. You just have to, just work around and just avoid, other boats or just kind of, give everybody their space and all that, but I enjoy it.
Do you have a website? I was looking for it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's being rebuilt right now.
Okay.
It'll be back live Monday. I've had a company building a new one this winter, so it'll be back up Monday. It's www.jimmymasonbasspro.com.
Okay. 1 second. BASSPRO.com. JimmyMasonBassPro.com. Then can also get a hold of you on your social medias.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you do like fishing reports and updates if people want to kind of keep up to what's going on the lakes? Or
so I do. I post on Facebook some. It's kind of that's one of the things you were talking about, the competition between a lot of the guides. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things I always say, the busiest guides post the least, and that's kind of the way it is around here. Just because, I mean, sometimes you want to fly under the radar just a little bit with other people, especially during them peak times. A lot of times I'll post after like a particular bite's over.
You're really good about marketing. Like I mentioned this on a BTL a while ago. Like you can't like open up a magazine, watch a TV show. Like you're all over for like the Pradco and Booyah, all sorts of different stuff. Like you do a lot of behind the scenes PR stuff and working with your sponsors as well, because for, you're heavily sponsored on the fishing side and the guide side, probably one of the most, and it obviously goes back to your pedigree and what you've done over the course of your career. But for a guide, you do a lot in the industry as well.
That's one of those things I try to work real hard at and develop the relationships. And like Daryl said, that that when y'all were talking, it is all about relationships and getting to know people, and I mean, you definitely work hard with it.
Yeah, and you'll have all the rates up on your website. What does it run if I want to go do a 3-hour white bass deal in the morning? Like, because that sounds ridiculously fun. Especially if I had kids, which I do not, but if I did, that would be awesome. Especially you're going through the area, get a half day in, catch 50 fish, and be on your way.
100%. That's $250 for actually.
Oh, wow.
I advertise it as 2.5 hours, but that's $250 for 2.5 hours. And
okay.
But I'm one of those guys that a lot of times I run over a little bit. A 4-hour trip is $350, and then an 8-hour trip is $450.
Wow, is that all standardized across the area? I mean, you got so many guides. I'd imagine the competition would have to be there. Do you guys do a pretty good job of standardizing? Because in Oklahoma and Texas right now, we're running into guys who are 1,500 to 2,000 for specialty trips. Then there's like the standard where the standard's 750 in some parts of the country. It's 600 in other. It seems to be all over the board.
It is, and that's pretty much the standardized rate here, at least with the group of guys that I work with. I don't really know any of the mainstream guides here that are much higher than that. And like I said, and that's typically the standard.
If you're bass fishing, do you prefer a guy who books a full day or a half day, or does it not matter to you? Like, if you're going to get, in your opinion, the most bang for the buck where you can really get into it, immersed in it, can you do that in a half day trip? Or do you prefer to get out there and say, all right, we got some time to get this guy dialed in? Or late?
Well, a lot of times, especially with the current, there'll be a peak feeding period, and then they'll shut the current at certain times of year. When they cut the current off, I mean, that's one of the things that's hardest. And you try to kind of let people know, are they going to bite really good till 11, and then the current's going to cut back in half, and then there's going to be 3 or 4 hours where they don't, or vice versa. They cut the current on and at a certain time of day, and I mean, it's one of those that sometimes that last few hours you don't catch near as many. You have to really scramble around, slow down, whatever. And I personally prefer the 8-hour days, but at times, especially like in the shad spawn time period, that time, a lot of times 4 hours. I mean, you blister them for 4 hours, and the person's caught all they want to, and they're ready to go in, and that's always fun too.
All right, I'm glad you mentioned that. For those who don't know what a shad spawn on the TVA is like, describe a good shad spawn scenario, like in the prime, what you can expect.
That's one of those, you're at the boat ramp and it's still dark when you get to the boat ramp, and you try to get you're on the water with your lights on, and you're trying to get on, the grass lines or the rock or wherever you feel like, wherever the shad are spawning, and you want to be there at the crack of daylight, and it's game on for the first 2 to 3 hours, and it's amazing, especially when you got guys that don't fish a lot, how that light switch effect is. It's like how surprising it can be. But I mean, it's just a fury of feeding, and it's such a fun time of year to, you catch them on top, you catch them on the Booyah spinnerbait, and it's just, I mean, it's such a fun time of year to fish.
It's a bite that, in my opinion, the first hour and a half can make your entire day. Like I vividly remember like the first one that I saw on Pickwick, and I was like, my God, this is like piranhas. Like you get on a stretch and they're literally, there's billions of shad up there and you have no idea how they can see it, but you're either throwing a swim jig or a buzz bait or a little crankbait, and they are actively hunting your lure down.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about the shad spawn, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is it could be a 7 or it could be a 13 incher, and they all mix in with each, and they all just go haywire for a couple hours.
Absolutely. And I mean, like you'll start feeling, just a little hits on your baits, but like throwing a spinner bait. And that's one of the things, especially if like you're searching for it. A spinner bait is my favorite bait to throw. And when you start feeling those little like short strikes or little where the shad are hitting your blade and causing that disturbance of the blade, you're really close to getting bit. And you'll retrieve your spinnerbait in, and there'll be a little cloud of shad around it. I mean, it's fixing to be game on, and that's so fun.
All right, shad wise on Wheeler, what are the ones with the little yellow on them? Like that one, I'd never seen one of those before. But it's got like yellow on it.
Yeah,
there's ones that look like ones out of Grand though that like don't have any yellow on it, and they're smaller.
Our thread fins get up to about 4 inches, and they'll have that chartreuse stripe down it. Locally you'll hear them called yellowtails.
Okay, that was it then. So it's a little bit different than what we have in Oklahoma, because those things came in and you snag one and you're like, holy cow, like I need to be throwing something with chartreuse.
Yeah, that's why the foxy shad and that little the shad baits with that little chartreuse stripe down them. That's from the shad. That's from the thread fins, the yellowtails.
Yeah, and then you also have gizzards and then skipjack herring.
Yeah, skipjack. And what's funny about that is like that there's become an industry around here of people catching the skipjack. And it's crazy how many guys that sometimes fishing the tail race, that's actually the hardest thing to do, is get away from the skipjack fishermen, because they're catching them and selling them for catfishing. Wheeler is one of the just tremendous catfish lakes, and there's a lot of catfish tournaments here now, and like big. I mean, we're talking about a lot of them pay $20,000, and you'll have, before those tournaments, you'll have 20 boats in the tail races, anchored skipjack fishing, and so it's kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, the smallmouth eat those a lot too.
I am fairly certain, and I'm going to show it to you here, that I caught a potential state record skipjack out of Wheeler this year.
Really?
Is that a big one?
That's a big one. That's a big one. Yeah,
it was probably about like a 2.5 pounder.
Yeah, that's a giant. That was a fight too, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're never going to believe what I caught it on. I caught it on a wacky worm on the bridge, which shows you why I finished 100 in that tournament, because I was wacky worm in a bridge. But I was reeling it in, and one just like, and I knew what it was. But I mean, like, would you consider that a trophy skipjack?
Yeah, it's a big one. That's a big one.
How do you guys target them otherwise? Like
do what now?
Go ahead. I just said, do guys throw like little crappie jigs or spinners or something if they're targeting those?
A lot of sabiki rigs.
Okay, yeah.
It's I listened to your BTL when you were talking about that tournament and that bridge. That I went over that bridge yesterday, and it's from the bridge back. It's frozen right now.
Really?
Yeah.
You guys are in that's why you're not on the water probably today. It's just because of that weather that comes through there.
Yeah, I'm fishing. We've got an Alabama Bass Trail 100 this weekend, and I'm gonna be leaving tomorrow for that to go down to Logan Martin. It's gonna be cold down there for that, but I usually take some time off in December and January and do some engineering work with Hummingbird on the Lake Master side, just to kind of keep my resume fresh. And guiding over 200 days a year, you need a little break. So I always take that. My new boat will be here next week, and it'll be wide open after that.
What do you fish out of?
A Phoenix.
Okay, so brand new Phoenix 9.
Yeah, I got this will be my 14th. I fished out a Triton before that. This is my 14th Phoenix.
Any desire to get back on the Elite Series or the top level there, or is that something that you did and you're glad you did it?
I'm glad I did it. My son, he's 11. Of course, he wants me to. He would like for me to, and I've requalified once. I think I've once or twice. I know once, maybe twice since I did it, and since I quit fishing, and I turned that invitation down, and not really. I mean, there's so much good stuff around here to fish. I mean, like since my team partner and I have won 4 boats since since I quit fishing them, and there's so much good stuff around here where you can win several thousand, $20,000 or $30,000 a year fishing close to home, and so it's honestly. I mean, like the Alabama Bass Trail 100, we're fishing Sunday at Logan's, a 1-day event. First place is $25,000, and they'll pay back through 20. And so, honestly, with the age of the kids, I hate missing baseball games. I hate missing volleyball games, and I don't know that I ever will.
What'd you say? He's 11.
He's 11.
Well, I mean, if the trend keeps going, he'll be on tour in about 4 years.
No doubt, because I mean, he is a live scope junkie, and it's amazing, like how good they are. I mean, like of course, he's all about the spinning rod and wacky rig and little 3-inch Yum Scott Spur tackle swim bait, and he and I've made he's made the Fishers of Men Legacy National Championship the last 2 years, actually the last 3 years. We didn't fish it 1 year because of some storms, but he loves it. I posted a picture the other day, it popped up on my memory where like it was nearly 100 this year in that Fishers of Men Legacy, and like he stood in the live well that didn't have any fish in it, and fished half the time standing in the live well where he could stay wet, and it was kind of funny.
Has forward-facing sonar made guiding easier, tougher, different? Do you not? I mean, are you a guy who stands up there and tells guys where to cast, or what? Like I said, you got 200 days a year. What are your thoughts on how that has affected the guide industry?
Of course, a lot of people want education. I do a lot of electronics education trips, and it's primarily with hummingbirds, and man, it's really eye-opening how much people want to learn on stuff. And like last year, and a lot of people are, I mean, yes, that's a topic that comes up. If a guy's a fairly serious fisherman, he is all about wanting to learn as much possible about live scope. But you don't, like last year, I had a regular at July at Guntersville, and this was just kind of blew me away. Like we had a really great day. He and his dad each caught. One of them caught two largemouth over 6. One of them caught one nearly 7. And the most memorable fish, and the fish that he talked about the most, was a fish that he saw bite his worm on the live scope, and it was a 2-pounder. And like that was the fish of the trip he was most excited about. And I'm like, I was kind of like, man, you caught a 614 today. And he's like, man, that was neat seeing that fish eat my bait. And it was a 2-pounder. Mm-hmm. So it has changed it some. People, that's one of the things, if you feel like that people go away satisfied when they feel like they've learned at least one thing in a day, and live scope has been one of those things that people have really wanted to, you try to focus on them learning something that day with live scope.
In my opinion, Guntersville is an underrated spotted bass fishery. True or false?
100%. And they're getting bigger over there. Matt Herron was sending me some pictures of some really good ones he was catching this winter there, and I mean, there's I've had a guy catch one over 5 there, and it's amazing how they're pretty reliable too on some places.
You ever have a guy who's like, hey, I want to go spotted bass fishing? You ever had a spotted bass trip, or is that one would be a new one? Because that would be me. That would be me, Jimmy.
Man, it's funny. You get all kind. That's kind of one of those things. I had a guy years ago, Wilson Frazier. You probably remember him when he was with the Travel with the Elite Trail,
Yep.
and he always said that the best way to learn something was to teach it. And at times, those little surprise deals like that kind of force you to have to think and make you. I mean, it helps you as well, you know.
When we were on that Open 2-3 years ago on Pickwick, I finished 42nd, all spots. Yeah, so I was the only guy who I think weighed in all spots that tournament. It was,
You know, I finished 13th in that one, and the first day I weighed in, you know, it's the Super Slam.
all three.
I had
All three.
I had all four.
Oh, mean mouth.
I had a 4-pound mean mouth. I had right at 20 that day, and had all four.
That's the Super Slam. So the Grand Slam is the 3. The Super Slam is the mean mouth mixed in, which would be a mix between, was it a smallmouth and a spot?
Smallmouth and a spot.
That's freaking cool.
They're so pretty too, man. And you know, I know like the TWRA, they're kind of worried about how much they're going to dilute the smallmouth genes, but you know, the spots that are getting into Pickwick, they're Coosa strains. You know, the ones that's coming over the last 15 years or so, they're Coosas, so they're a lot bigger, and those mean mouth are so pretty. I actually weighed in. I think I weighed in all 4 species both days.
And then the smallmouth on Wheeler to me seemed kind of like ghosts.
You know, but honestly, and that's one of those things that guiding on Wheeler the least. Wheeler's also my favorite from a tournament standpoint, and a lot of times I'll concentrate on smallmouth, you know, and like when I won that ABA national championship back in, you know, years ago, I weighed in, and like that was 580 boats in that, and I weighed in 580 people. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say.
Yeah, it was crazy. You know, it was 580 people. That, you know, that's actually where I met Clark Ring for the first time. You know, and I weighed in 13 out of 15 of the fish I weighed in were smallmouth in that tournament, and that's just Wheeler smallmouth are different. They are more nomadic. They will come. They will leave you in a heartbeat. They will leave you in a heartbeat. But they are, if you can figure them out, you can do really well on them.
They will. All right. For more information, if they want to get in the boat with you on Wheeler, Wilson, Pickwick, Guntersville, do you do any other like request TVA fisheries, or are those the 4 that you primarily like to stick
Those are the
with?
4 I do. I'll do a few trips a year, especially corporate trips that on Smith, you know, like Brent Crow, one of the other ones I guide with. He guides a lot on Smith, so he'll do some corporate stuff down there, and I'll help him. But I typically is just as part of other group. That's the only other lake I really guide on.
Yeah, I guess you don't have to go. I mean, those 4 have pretty much everything you could ask for. Anything else that I'm leaving out here? Social media, Facebook page.
Yes, Jimmy Mason Fishing, and same with the Instagram is J Mason Fishing.
Yeah, and then JimmyMasonBassPro.com to check it out. Jimmy, thank you greatly.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me on. It's definitely it's one of those things. You know, if a person comes to North Alabama, contact me. I get special rates at a number of the hotels, and can save you some money there and some of the VRBOs, and you'll have a great time and have the chance of catching the smallmouth or largemouth of a lifetime. I've had, you know, client catch a 10-pounder and quite a few 9s over the years, and it's a very awesome area of the lake, of the country to fish.
And you get to doing a lot of cool things too. A lot, like every technique you've ever seen on a Bassmaster show or an MLF show, you can do that somewhere on these fisheries.
100%. 100%.
All right, Jimmy, thanks for jumping on at Guide Day with BTL as we wrap things up. We will be back on Monday with a live show. Gerald Spohr, BPT Pro, is on, and he's going to do an entire show talking about how you can still make a living in this industry without doing social media. Interested in that one. He reached out with me. He said, can I get on and talk about this? I'm passionate about it. So I said, absolutely. So that's what we'll have. Until then, we will talk to everybody on Monday. Jimmy, thanks again. Greatly appreciate it. Everybody stay warm. See ya.